and development, into knowing what people think, and with that kind of thing, it's always good to make a film. Thank you.
Some questions from the panelists. Questions first. Questions. Anybody have questions? I have a question while you guys are thinking. You were talking about production companies, the big ones, and then the independent, and then freelance work. So you were talking about like you're likely to be more successful in big companies, right, and higher salaries and whatnot. What are the likelihood or the odds of getting, like, especially as a producer or a filmmaker, a role in a company like that, or what are the steps that, what is the best way to get into that? Or do you think that for you personally, what would you prefer to do, that role, that route, or independent or freelance?
The best way to get into big production companies is simply freelance work. Stanley Kubrick never even went to college for this. He just started with photography, and then from there moved on to freelance work in film, and then moved on to and then with the introduction of his movies, he started moving on to big companies, Universal, 20th Century Fox, and that's the kind of route everybody has to go through. Steven Spielberg went through freelance work before he went to an independent, then to big companies. It's always a matter of your notoriety, is how I say it. How popular are you?
You have to build a name for yourself.
You have to build a huge name for yourself. Everybody you know from a huge production company already has a great track record.
Okay.
For example, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Stanley Kubrick, Martin Scorsese. You have the new Alejandro, which directed The Revenant.
Any other questions?
You?
You.
Oh, I can't remember your name.
Are you sure you don't want to be a comedian? From what I've seen, though, your comedy is much better than filming.
Fire!
Anyway, I have a question. You mentioned you spoke about criticism, taking criticism. And my question was, and I wrote it the other day, about do you take criticism well? But you also, before I answer that question, you talked about, basically kind of like doing it your way or no way. It's kind of like the way I interpreted what you were saying. So as a producer, do you think you're going to have to answer to higher up people that make decisions? And how are you going to deal with that?
A lot of times, it's usually the producer's decision. But sometimes, if you're going with Hollywood, Hollywood's very demanding. Everybody knows Hollywood as the kind of strong armors. These people are ruthless in their research and development. And when they call up a producer to make a movie, it's always how they want it. Now, you have other kind of production companies like Fox Spotlight, independent companies that will let you have more creative freedom. And this kind of things is kind of the ideal spot for you. If you want to go big with money and kind of a franchise that you can upstart, you go with Hollywood. If you want to have more creative freedom over yourself, you go with independents. And even then, more so over, independent companies have earned a lot more money because of their more creative freedom.
Excuse me. I'm asking the question about how you're going to feel about like working for the man and taking rejection and things of that nature.
Rejections are all a part of the production process. It's always, and if you've seen the deleted scenes, a lot of those scenes were removed because of the big man cutting, omissioning it, or just simply he didn't like it.
You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. It seems to me like in that industry, it's a pretty cutthroat. You mentioned it's pretty tough to get anything made.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of made, as a follow-up, have you made any other films Like personal films, like that you know, were tinkering around with or whatever it is?
Well, I usually like to keep my personal projects in like different kind of perspectives, as I usually keep them personal, as to not claim any copyright, because most of my work is simply just taking footage off the internet and editing it in a way that's cohesive. And I actually have a financial literacy project that I had, that kind of took pieces of Star Wars and simply edited it in a cohesive way, and using my voice, kind of Adobe Audition, things like of that nature. I was able to create those different things. And yes, I have created a lot of others. Most of the stuff you saw on during 2014 and 2013 was a bit of my work.
That was a piece that you saw? The piece that you saw here?
You saw here was was simply a small commercial for a big picture.
This is what you
All
do
seven?
there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Alright. I'm not done.
Okay, any other questions? And then if not, we'll go to feedback. No questions?
Well, questa persona sono stata in applauso. Non so più so excited.
You want to start the feedback?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Anything, any feedback, positive or things you can improve?
Yeah. Well, that's really excited. The first time. So I thought he was really shy to talk in the front of the pool.
Feedback, F. John?
Well, your real-life connections really impressed me. I thought it was interesting when you talked about your academic connections, and that's it.
So like what John said, but you had bits where you just digressed and went to like something else, and then you didn't show your secondary planning.
Alright. You anybody want to see it? Because I have it right here. It's for your post-secondary plan. No, but it's there.
Okay. Other feedback? Positive, things that have been improved, anything?
My feedback to you is, don't say nothing to me, or I will sound funny. We did really real sharp today. If you get accepted to USC, let me know. Got a couple connections out there. Also, how you have a plan B? You said do you know the road process? Do you know the process of getting into your internship with college for the first year? You said. What it said doesn't work.
Yes, I've been reading up on it. It requires the use of a college guidance counselor. You need a few people that they have to know to talk to, or they can try to make new connections. It obviously takes a bit of time, but when you get it, it can either be worth it or just a complete waste of your time. In my case, I'm pretty sure it would be worth it.
I believe you.
Okay, Sacristi?
Jareck, and my name is Andrew Sacristi, guidance counselor. I'm a third-year film student. First of all, I'm very, very impressed with the way you look, the way you presented. The way you work in the room was probably the best I've seen. However, one of the parts of that is it was probably just a lot of moving, and I know that you were kind of nervous in your own way. So I would limit the complete back and forth, but otherwise you really talked to everyone and engaged them, so I thought that was great. All right. Everything was clear and concise. I just would love for you to have kind of brought it down a little bit to the layman's level. You're talking about things that you're passionate about, that you love, and that's the purpose of this. However, I don't know much about anything in film, and it's not my passion, so I would love for you to kind of delve into a little bit more of like a quick synopsis of like what's going on and what you wanted to do, all right? Because you can tell you're passionate about it. So that's a little constructive. On the other end of that, you applying to schools, you should see your guidance counselor, because when you say you applied to the University of Southern California, did you do that on the Common App or you did it on the Common App?
Comment.
So you need to send your stuff there? Did you send your information, everything you needed?
I can't, because strangely I can't, because whatever it does, the PDF generator isn't even working, so I can't really submit it.
Right, so you should probably stop in and see someone by the name of Mr. Saperstein, who's your guidance counselor, again, and, stop in, say hello, so that way we can make sure that when you're thinking of, that you applied, I want to make sure that it's submitted. That way you can make your decisions and everything else.
Ms. Summers,
Yep.
any feedback?
What about you?
I already did.
What about you, Jennifer? I hear your voice. What about you, Jeff?
I'm gonna talk later.
What about you?
4 o'clock.
All right, so Jared, presentation-wise, I think Mr. Saperstein nailed it. You look fantastic. You definitely have a good presence. Little things that I think more presentations will help you to just get stronger. But definitely for doing your first exhibition like this, I think you're definitely, up there with just a natural presence when it comes to presenting in front of a group. Just a little bit so some of the tangents, again, this goes into more of the details about the industry and what you know that maybe we don't so much get into the detail. Just kind of you got a little bit, you did mention in your reflection that you go on the tangents in your thinking, and I think that kind of came out in your presentation where it just kind of went on. So just kind of cut short some things that maybe where you can give us the synopsis rather than the full-blown explanation. And content-wise, I would have liked to see, your academic reflection was really interesting, as John said, but I would have liked to see more about qualities as well as your experience. So what do you think are some personal qualities that you have that have made you successful? And then what are some other qualities that maybe you could work on that could really improve your academics and other just areas of, internship, whatever it is that you're engaged in. And then I like that you showed us the teaser trailer, but I would have liked to see a breakdown of the project. You told us that it was a commercial for a big picture, but we would have liked to see the breakdown of why you guys are doing this, what's the product, what's the purpose. But other than that, I think it was a great presentation. It was very informative, and the icebreaker was really cool too. I appreciate the use of technology and engaging the audience. So good job. You can
Go ahead.